Starting with Final Fantasy, Sagas will not need to be sacrificed if they lose all abilities. E.N.D here. With the release of Final Fantasy and especially the introduction of the new Saga creatures, if you're not familiar on how these new enchantment creatures work, be sure to check out my tutorial. I will leave a link in the description below. Wizards of the Coast has made a significant and impactful rules change. This change affects not only the new Saga creatures from Final Fantasy, but Sagas in general, marking a notable shift in how these cards function going forward. Previously, if a Saga lost all abilities, it loses all its chapters, since chapters are triggered abilities, which means that its final chapter number is 0. And since you have to sacrifice a Saga whenever the number of lore counters is greater than or equal to its last chapter, and that chapter is now 0, the old rules considered that Saga was over. For example, if you play Erza Saga and your opponent casts Blood Moon, turning Erza Saga into a basic mountain and stripping it of all abilities, the Saga will effectively have no chapters. As a result, it will be treated as it is on its final chapter, meaning it gets immediately sacrificed. The same logic would have been applied to Saga creatures, like Summon Ixion. If your opponent casts Tishana's Tidebinder, targeting and removing all abilities from Summon Ixion, it loses its Saga text and chapters. With no chapters left, it would have been treated as if it reached its final chapter and therefore sacrificed. Now, starting with Final Fantasy, Sagas will not need to be sacrificed if they lose all abilities. The new rule change stated that if a Saga has no chapters abilities, it won't be subject to the state-based action that would cause it to be sacrificed due to how many lore counters it has. Similarly, it won't be subject to the turn-based action that adds a lore counter to each Saga you control at the beginning of your first main phase each turn. For example, if you cast Summon Ixion and its Chapter 1 ability triggers, but your opponent responds by casting Tishana's Tidebinder, targeting Summon Ixion triggered ability and removing all its abilities, the following will happen. Summon Ixion loses all its chapters abilities, including the ongoing Saga functionality. However, it will still keep the lore counters already placed on it. Without its Saga abilities, it won't progress through chapters and the lore counters become meaningless. Since it has no chapters abilities, it won't be sacrificed anymore. If somebody removes Tishana's Tidebinder, then Summon Ixion will resume to be an enchantment Saga and will continue working as intended. The same principles applies to Erza Saga and Blood Moon. If you play Erza Saga and your opponent casts Blood Moon, Erza Saga becomes a basic mountain and loses all its abilities, including its Saga text. Since it no longer has Saga abilities, it doesn't check for chapter progression and won't be sacrificed even if it has more lore counters than chapters. It simply remains on the battlefield as a mountain with no Saga functionality. To conclude, Sagas without chapters no longer die. They simply pause their story until the text becomes back. In case of Saga creatures, they will still be creatures, though even if vanilla, you can still attack and block with them. It is a sad day for Blood Moon, Tishana's Tidebinder or any similar spell who no longer gets to be the fun police, but a great day for the upcoming Final Fantasy set and for players in general. One less obscure rule interaction to have a headache with. So that's how this new rule change regarding Sagas is played. Leave me a comment below, what do you think? And as always, subscription button here, subscribe for my channel for more and more interesting videos about Magic the Gathering and the collectible world. Liliana.